The following is a Papi Chulo Radio original program. The views and opinions expressed in the commentaries and/or interviews in the following program are solely those of the individuals and are not views of Papi Chulo Radio, its parent, affiliate, or subsidiary companies.
Welcome to Are You Afraid 1984, the unofficial American Horror Story 1984 podcast, a PapiChuloRadio.com original series. Papi Chulo Radio, pop culture on demand. Today is Thursday, September 26th, 2019, and I'm your host, Jeffrey Arauz. During this podcast, we're going to recap, review, and dissect the latest episode of the FX series, American Horror Story 1984. Please welcome my co-host, Madison Fitzpatrick.
Hello, guys. Welcome to almost day one of first day of camp.
I know, right? Well, let's get into it. Let's jump into our recap of Season 9, Episode 2, which was titled Mr. Jingles, and aired September 25th, 2019. Here's the official synopsis of the episode. Darkness descends upon the camp. Although it's lights out, evil has no curfew. Bum, bum, bum. All right, Maddie Fitz, what was your initial reaction to episode 2?
Honestly, I found it a little fast. Everything that was going on was a little jarring to me. And I also had to really think about this episode is this what I'm actually seeing? Is this actually going on? Is it just hallucinations? Are these people really here? It was a lot of mind-boggling things that were going on. I liked it because, of course, I liked the theme of this season, but it went a little too fast in my mind. What about you?
You know what? It is going by fast, and it's giving me a lot of Roanoke vibes because of it, because the Roanoke episodes, I believe, out of all of the American Horror Story season episodes, like every single episode period, I feel like the Roanoke season has the shortest episodes. Like the actual length of the episode. Like, I don't even think they were 40 minutes. And typically an hour show on television, minus the commercials, is about, let's say 42 minutes. I feel like the Roanoke episodes were coming in like the 30s, like 37 minutes and that kind of stuff. So I did not do an episode, or not an episode, but a minute count for this episode, but it did go by fast. There was a lot of action. There were a lot of revelations, which was really interesting. It did make me question how this season is going to play out, much like you, Maddie. I was also questioning, what is real, what isn't real, who is this, who is that, what's going on. But it also made me question, is this season going to span over one night? Kind of like how Roanoke, the second half of that season, spanned over a night. I do feel like that we will be getting a twist at some point. I just feel like it's obvious, especially because, and this is something that I discovered, the 6th episode of the season is the 100th episode of American Horror Story.
Ooh.
So I feel like something has to happen in the 6th episode that's going to shake things up. Possibly. We've been sort of spoiled with these damn twists every season, ever since Roanoke, actually. So I think we're all expecting it. It'd be funny if they don't do a twist this season. But I feel like there has to be something coming, something special for the 100th episode. So stay tuned for that, listeners. But because of that, and because it seems like maybe this is all going to span one night, at least for the first half of the season. I am intrigued by what they're going to do next. So, yeah. But all that is to say, I really did enjoy it. It was a very rewatchable episode. I'm here for this season, and it's fascinating because there are a lot of people that are not liking this season online. You could kind of say that for every season of American Horror Story. It's one of the sort of, what would you call it, the curses of an anthology type of show. Every season there's a different theme, different location, different mythology. And so some people will either really like it or some people are gonna not. And hearing people sort of like really hate on it, but then seeing like the passion of people like give it props is very fascinating to see in the comment section of many popular websites. So before we get into a thorough recap of the latest episode of American Horror Story 1984, here's our announcer with a few special announcements.
Follow Poppy Chula Radio on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Poppy Chula Radio. Do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns? Email us via contact@poppychularadio.com. Are you interested in joining the Poppy Chula Radio team as an on-air personality? Email talent@poppychularadio.com. Binge listen to your favorite Poppy Chula Radio programs by visiting poppychularadio.com/archives. You can also download tonight's broadcast and the rest of the series through Apple Podcasts and Google Play. Just search for Are You Afraid? 1984 and subscribe.
Thanks, announcer. So let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. Let's start with the cold open, because we got our first death in the cold open. We were introduced to Dr. Hopple in the previous episode, and well, she's gone before the opening credits started. Although this is American Horror Story, so is anybody ever really dead? And is anybody ever really gone? You know, with flashbacks and all that kind of stuff that tend to happen throughout a season. But certainly it appears as if the good doctor died. And at least, well, before we even get into the mythos of what we were introduced to this episode, it looks like she's dead. So she goes to the camp. She basically is there to warn Margaret about Mr. Jingles escaping. And Margaret is basically like, no, we're still going to open the camp. Everything's fine and dandy. I got my little pistol here, and I'm ready to go for when I meet Jingles face to face. And this time around, Jingles isn't going to make it out alive, is basically what she said. Hopple's basically like, you're crazy. I'm going to go to the police. And she drives away. Her tire pops. And she's freaking out. A car's behind. Turns out it's a tow truck. And she's like, oh, it's lucky that you're here and whatnot. And it turns out it is Mr. Jingles. And Mr. Jingles takes her out her car, basically tells her, you were right, I am a monster, and he kills her. So, let's talk about this. Maddie Fitz, what did you think of the opening? Were you surprised that they killed the good doctor so fast? And what did you think of Margaret's response to the doctor?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that they killed her so quickly. I thought that she was going to have a bigger role, and obviously like way more information that we got from her. And because of our theory last week, I kind of wasn't surprised at all at Margaret's reaction to it. So I kind of figured that she was going to react that way. But yeah, kind of sad that they killed her off so quickly.
I know, right? Yeah. I have ideas, and I feel like I got a bit of a confirmation about Margaret in this episode. So I will just say I was surprised that the good doctor died. And it was a really cool death, though. I mean, it was very, very 80s. of it, with the gore and I don't know, with the gore and like the camera angles and that kind of stuff. I really really liked it. It was pretty damn awesome, and yeah, it was just cool. It was very 80s, just everything about it. Margaret's reaction was fascinating though, so I I guess I should just leave it there because I have so much to say about Margaret, but we're not there yet. So, moving right along, we had an interesting revelation from one of our characters. So, Brooke confides in Montana about, like, just the tragedy that seems to follow her. And we learned that last summer she was going to get married, but her fiance ended up freaking out at the altar, thinking that she slept with his best friend, and they were saving each other for marriage and all this kind of stuff. But she, denies it. The friend denies it, and the fiance ends up shooting the friend, shooting Brooke's father, and then committing suicide by shooting himself in the face and bloodying up her wedding dress because he said she doesn't deserve to wear white. What did you think of that? And what did you think of Montana's reaction to it, as well as the near kiss?
Um, I thought the wedding was a little crazy. Definitely was not what I expected because I initially did wonder what happened with Brooke since she did have the engagement ring last episode. I did not expect him to shoot everybody. So that was intense, and of course, this is why she's like, so paranoid and freaking out and stuff like that. So definitely explains her mannerisms. But yeah, I was not expecting that. That was insane.
Yeah, it was very Kill Bill for a moment. It was also very
Yeah,
80s
for
with
sure.
like the blood and
Hmm.
just everything. It was shocking. It was something that I really didn't expect, but it was still ridiculously over the top in the best way possible, I would say. Yeah, it was so over the top, but so good. And I don't know if it really explains a lot about Brooke's current state of mind, but it was interesting that trauma and tragic events do seem to follow her. I wonder if that's a hint at something. And do you believe that she was faithful?
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay.
Yeah, she doesn't seem like that type.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I think she was faithful as well. But man, good grief, that was nuts. What about the near kiss?
I don't know. It was a little weird just because like Montana already said like that she doesn't swing that way, but so she's just friendly. But I don't know. Maybe like she was just drunk or I don't know. It didn't seem like Brooke was like hugely upset with it. Like she didn't react like in like, dude, what the hell are you doing or anything. She's just like, I need to go outside. Like it was kind of weird. But it obviously didn't surprise me, I don't think, between the two characters.
Okay. I I don't know if just because she said that she's not a les, it doesn't mean that she might not have bisexual tendencies. Number
Yeah, for
one.
sure.
So seeing that come out was interesting. I wonder if something will happen between them. Let's be honest. It might be kind of interesting. It is fascinating to see sort of like the different couplings sort of happen here. Clearly, I mean, she had a thing with Trevor, and later on in the episode, we learn that Ray seems to have a thing for Brooke. In the previous episode, it looked like Brooke might have had a thing for Chet. So it's like this whole, just cesspool of sex that seems to be happening with like the couplings, different people having like different, just the different pair-ups are really interesting. It's kind of fascinating. So let's see, where should we go next? Well, let's talk about the major revelation that we got with Xavier, because we were wondering about Xavier in the previous episode, and we got the full rundown in this episode. His past came back to haunt him, and his past was also eliminated just like that. So we learn that apparently Xavier was a drug addict, and he was picked up off the side of the streets or off the outside of a park and cleaned up by this man, Blake. And we don't fully know the extent of their relationship, just because Blake ends up dying. But it seems as if either Blake was his sugar daddy or something, or maybe Blake was a porn producer of some sort, because he ended up getting Xavier to star in gay porn, even though Xavier says he's not gay, and then the guy's like gay for pay and that kind of stuff. And Blake is trying to get Xavier to star in another one, and he's blackmailing him, basically saying, I know what you're trying to do with your acting and whatnot, like, I'm going to mail a copy to all your friends and your employers and this, that, or the other. So he's basically blackmailing him into starring in another one. But Xavier sort of finds out a means in which that he can kind of get out of being blackmailed, and that is by introducing Blake to someone even bigger, even better. And so he takes them to where the guys are showering, and there's a little peephole, and he looks in at Trevor. He's very impressed, but before anything can even happen, and before this whole plan of Xavier can come to fruition, well, first off, Xavier flees, but Blake ends up getting killed, and everyone finds him. Everyone freaks out. They see that his ear has been chopped off, so this leads to confirmation that Mr. Jingles is out there. And initially Xavier denies knowing the guy, but then later on, as he's having a moment of freak out, he confesses that he did know him, although he didn't really, what would you call it? He didn't really go deep into exactly how they know each other. So, Maddie, what did you think of this revelation with Xavier, and what did you think of Blake's death?
It obviously filled in some holes that we were missing, like who had called him. Is he gay? We figured out those questions. I do believe that, Blake did find him on the street and basically was like, let me clean you up. I can make you a star like you want to be. You just have to do this one film type thing and I'll take care of you. So obviously, Blake has him wrapped around his finger, and that's what he was running away from. So, we figured out like two people's backstories. We figured out Brooke's backstory of why she's running away from something, and we have now Xavier's backstory of who he's running away from as well. But the fact that Blake got blown off so easily already is kind of like, whoa. Like, we were just introduced to this character and now he's dead. Like, I don't know. That's what I mean about how I was like, wow, this is like really fast. But I don't know. Like, we'll see. Obviously, this is finally his death is something that everyone was like, oh my God, shit's actually real. And Brooke's not just like losing her mind. So I think his death obviously sparked something in the whole chaos. But I'm wondering if this whole season is going to be like this night. Like, what about the kids coming tomorrow? Or is like the whole season going to be like this one night of them all together? You know what I mean? So I wonder about that. But yeah, I'm very, very interested in seeing what's going to happen. But yeah, I'm kind of pissed that Blake got off so easily.
Yeah, I think this night will cover like the first 5 episodes. Yeah, I think that's currently my theory. Much like the second half of Roanoke was all one night, I feel like this first half of the season is going to be all one night. I feel like that is just the thing that makes the most sense. Like, I don't think we're going to have kids that are going to be killed. I think the reason why a lot of our main people haven't died yet is because they want to save, if there are going to be major deaths from any of our current sort of crop of main characters, they're going to save them for like those maybe final 2 episodes in this first half of the season, so like episodes 4 or 5 or something like that. Um, yeah, I think that's why they're also killing off a lot of the side characters and like these sort of just minor role people so that they can save some of the main people for later on. I don't know if everyone's going to survive. I don't know if half is going to survive. I don't know if there will be just one final person, but I'm here for it. It's going to be a long night for these people. Blake did get off easy, in a sense, or not. I don't even want to say Blake. I think Xavier got off easy, because it seemed like he was really freaking out about the sort of gay porn past coming out, and the fact that Blake just up and died. I thought that was a very nice way to sort of wrap up his whole mysterious past that we were introduced to in the previous episode. So let's see. Well, also I will say that the sort of his storyline in particular is very interesting because of when this takes place. It takes place in the 80s, and there are a couple of actors that did start off doing either gay porn or porn, even if it's small bit roles and that kind of stuff. So that storyline is apropos for the time, as well as actual Hollywood history. I mean, you can Google Sylvester Stallone, and you'll find out that he starred in a little something something at some point early on in his career. So let's see. Let's continue on, and let's talk about Richard Ramirez. So, Richard Ramirez shows up. Uh, it actually happens when Brooke is out. She's taken a bit of fresh air. The lights are all turned off. We see Margaret flips a switch, and so it's lights out for the entire camp. And she's out by the dock, and she's just wading her feet in the water, and she feels something down there. She sees a dead body. She turns around, and there's the night stalker. And there's a little bit of back and forth. How'd you find me? This, that, the other. I told you he'd show me the way, and that kind of thing. And there's a chase, and she manages to escape, but Richard runs into Jonas, our little hiker from the previous episode. And I was surprised because it looked like Jonas had died in the previous episode, but I guess he was alive. I guess maybe, he was still a little bit alive because he's alive here. And Richard Ramirez does his thing and ends up killing him. And he even says, Jonas is like, I'm not supposed to die here. And he gets killed. But then when Richard Ramirez turns around, there he is alive again. And Richard Ramirez is confused. Jonas is confused. And Richard Ramirez ends up killing him once again. And he ends up looking at his little name tag. His name is Jonas. It said 1970 on it. And when Richard Ramirez turns around once more, Jonas disappears. So, let's talk about this first, because I feel like the whole Richard Ramirez Margaret conversation can be its own fucking thing. Um, so, well, let me tag on here. Margaret's conversation. Well, no, I'm trying to think because I'm trying not to go too deep ahead. Let's just
There's
do
so
that.
much that
I know
happened.
there really is a lot to happen. Let's pause. Let's pause. Let's pause. Okay, let's just talk about this because I feel like we can have an entire conversation about this. So, with this sequence, we have found out that much like other American Horror Story seasons, ghosts are a thing here, clearly, because Jonas was alive and then dead and then alive and then dead and then disappeared. So, ghosts are a thing here in 1984. And if they at all follow the same rules that we were introduced to in Murder House, the ghosts are sort of tethered to a location. And yeah, so they sort of haunt the location in which they died. And because the kids brought the body to the camp, uh, Jonas is no longer tethered to that road. He's now tethered to sort of like the campgrounds, it appears. An interesting little note, Jonas is, gosh, what is the word? Anagram? Is that what you call it when you can mix the letters up to make another word?
Yeah, I think. Let's go with that.
Okay, because
All of
Jonas,
our listeners are like, no, it's this.
I know, is it an anagram? Because Jonas would be an anagram for Jason. Yes, it is an anagram. Thank you, Google. Jonas would be an anagram for Jason. And this is the slasher season, you know?
Like Jason, like Freddy and Jason, like.
Like Jason Voorhees. So I think it's just an
Mm,
homage. It's like a little wink because this is the slasher season. But I thought that was kind
right.
of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, talk to me about this revelation with Jonas and Richard Ramirez. What did you think of it? Did this kind of, not necessarily blow your mind, but you were like, oh, okay, so ghosts are a thing here?
Kind of weirded me out a little bit. But at the same time, it's like I'm not surprised because like we did have so many people die um at this camp. Um, but the fact that he's showing up multiple times and like you can touch him and everything, like, because there's different levels of, I guess, like how you can perceive ghosts or experience them, I suppose. So the fact that everybody can actually see him, touch him, and everything like that, it's, I guess it's like a different level of ghost that we're seeing. But it didn't surprise me that there are ghosts in the season, like I said, but him being a ghost was a little weird because I thought he was going to be tying back to, I don't know, like we were saying, like maybe like Mr. Jingles had him before and he was already out and all this stuff, but now it's just like, oh, he's just a ghost. So kind of a little disappointing, but still cool in the same time.
I like that he's corporeal because it's just a nice little added layer to his ghostage. So I thought that was kind of neat. It was fascinating that he can die over and over again, like you know that whole thing. I thought this was a really neat revelation. Like I was really, really here for it. Like I was like, yes, so we've got ghosts, and it makes sense because I was like, I thought he had died because he was hung up on the door and whatnot. It looked like he was stabbed, but then he's not. And so now that it was revealed that he's a ghost, I'm like, okay, that totally makes sense, and it adds sort of like another layer to this story, and I like it a lot. I like that we're bringing in ghosts. I like that we're continuing on with that mythology that we were introduced to in the very first season of American Horror Story. So I was 100% here for this, and I was really pumped. Like I was just like, yes. Like when I saw this, I was like, yes, yes, he's a fucking ghost. That's amazing. Which means it does open the door for surprises down the line. Like, is anyone else that we know here also a ghost? Once someone dies, they're no longer dead. That's why I said earlier about the doctor. She could come back at a certain point as a ghost and give us more information and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I was really, really here for this entire revelation. I was like, this is exciting for me. I like it. I love when they mix ghosts and stuff into it. So, and yeah, it's just really interesting. So moving right along with this, I want to tackle two conversations that Margaret had together, because it's going to lead to a theory that we discussed in the previous podcast, and I feel like we had 100% confirmation. I would say, maybe, at least for me. I'm 100% down for this now. So, Richard Ramirez goes into Margaret's cabin. She ends up finding him, and they have this entire talk. It was like a fucking bonding session, because Richard Ramirez is basically like, I've never had anyone listen to me before. And she's like, well, maybe you just need someone to believe in you and to listen, and this, that, or the other, even though they disagree on whom to follow, because he's all about Satan, she's all about God. But she explains her little ground rules of stuff. She's like, if you believe, and if you believe and you use your faith, you can explain anything away. You can explain the ghosts, you can explain acts of violence, and this or that or the other. And I was like, well, that's pretty damn interesting that you think that. And then what else did she say? And she's basically wants to use Richard Ramirez to get rid of Jingles. And, she's like, no more killing, but, you need to find this Jingles for me. And they seem to have a really nice little time together. There's a whole lot of sexualness that's going on. At least I felt it.
It's totally like how she's talking is she's making it okay for what she's doing. You know what I mean? Like, because we've already thought that, like, this is what's going on. It, like, her saying this stuff is like, yep, for sure. Like, but it's a little weird now that she has this, we thought that maybe she was working with Mr. Jingles, but now it's kind of weird for her telling Richard Ramirez to go after him, unless she just thinks Richard Ramirez is going to fail. And, like, Mr. Jingles is just going to kill him regardless. Like, you know what I mean? She's like, you can't kill anybody else because those are for me and Mr. Jingles, but, like, I just need you to kill Mr. Jingles because I know that he's going to kill you anyways. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like
I know what you mean, but I have my own little theory. I have my own little theory about what's going on. No,
but it's like, it's
like
very confusing because even in these flashbacks that we're having with, is it Jonas?
Mm-hmm.
When he was saying, I saw you at the camp, it doesn't look like the way that she described it, that we're seeing it from him. So, I don't know. It's because, like, her being on the floor and, covered in blood and he rips off her ear and stuff, that's not how we saw the flashback from Jonas. So it's a little, suspicious, definitely. But yeah, so I don't know. I liked this whole Ramirez and Margaret, situation. I found it very intriguing, but yeah, definitely speculations right now. Definitely.
Oh, totally. To continue on with what you're saying before I give my take on both the Ramirez stuff and what I'm just going to mention right now. So Margaret is filled in about the Jonas situation. Margaret ends up finding Jonas, and she's like, Jonas, it's you. And he recognizes her as well. And she's like, what year do you think it is? And he's like, 1970. And he has this immense guilt for running away. Because he's like, I should have saved them. I should have saved all of you. And we see flashes to that night, as you mentioned. And it isn't of Margaret on the floor. It is of Margaret sort of standing up, looking slightly evil-ish, blood all over her. And she questions him, like, what did you see? How much did you see? And he's like, nothing. I ran away to the phone, and then I ran to get, he just ran. And that's when he got hit by a car, and it turns out it was Mr. Jingles, and that's when Mr. Jingles kills him. So, unless we're doing some sort of time trickery, like, that could not have been Mr. Jingles at the camp killing those kids. So I think the theory that we had, and now I'm going to flesh it out a little bit more. I think Margaret woke up in the middle of the night. She saw that the counselors were having a threesome. I feel like her religious fanaticism took over, whether she did it consciously or not, but she went nuts and she killed not only the counselors, but also the people in the cabin, because they would have all been witnesses. And yeah, so I 100% believe she did it. And much like what she was saying to Richard Ramirez, as you said, Maddie, she uses this devout faith as as a means to explain away, that horrible act of violence that she did, and also maybe to even explain away the current acts of violence that she might be doing.
Yeah, I feel that way, that she's just using all this, but I'm kind of wondering even if kids are coming, you know what I mean? Or if she just planned to get these counselors, or like, you know what I mean? I wonder if, kids are coming as just a ruse. So,
Well, she
I
did
don't know.
tell Richard Ramirez that the kids were coming.
Yeah, but is that just
Is that just a
to
lie?
get his
Yeah.
motivation?
I
You know?
I do think because she sort of sent Richard Ramirez off to kill Jingles, I feel like Jingles is not a part of her deal, at least. And I do now believe my theory that I said in the previous podcast, that she framed Jingles.
Mm.
Jingles
But
might be
now
a
why is
killer.
Jingles all doing all this stuff
Well,
then?
Jingles might be a killer. Maybe she knew that Jingles was a killer, and so she framed Jingles for that particular set of murders. She used him as a scapegoat since he was killing anyway, and maybe he's after her, just because, not necessarily because she framed him. Well, because she framed him, and because she put him away into a psychiatric hospital. So it stopped him from being able to continue on his murder, death, kill spree type of thing. That's what I'm guessing. So I don't think they're working together at all.
We will see.
We will. It's hella interesting though, hella fascinating. Lots of revelations, really interesting stuff. Yeah. Do you feel like Margaret and Richard Ramirez are gonna have sex?
Oh, for sure. But I don't even know, because it's like this night has to end sometime, right? Like, what could happen? Yeah, I don't know. It's going fast, but it's also, you know, there's so much to cover.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. So, I don't know what's going to happen between them, but there was certainly a connection there. There was. Yeah, we got some flashbacks to Richard Ramirez too, and yeah, it was really fascinating, and I like what Leslie Grossman is doing with the character. I know that in the previous podcast she got a little flack from some of you, but I feel like in this episode she brought it. Would you agree, Maddie?
Yeah, she's doing a lot better with it, just because it's like I get that she's like sadistic in that way. Um, she's doing I have a better time believing her character now, if that makes sense. Because like I said before in the last podcast, that it was hard for me to like get into this character for her, but now I'm kind of understanding or seeing her in this character. So
Nice. I like it. So, okay. So our people have realized that there's a killer on the loose, and that whole Mr. Jingles, maybe even Richard Ramirez thing from Brooke must be real. So they decide that they need to flee because these counselors actually have some sort of brain cells, because that's what you're supposed to do in these movies. You're supposed to run. And so they all get into the Scooby van and the Mystery Machine, and they're ready to escape, but Rita shows up. So let's talk about Rita for a moment. So earlier, Rita was jamming to the Pointer Sisters' Jump, and she gets visited by Mr. Jingles, and that's all we saw. And then we see Rita. She's a little bit bloodied, and the car now doesn't work, but Rita has a car, and Trevor has a motorcycle, but Rita doesn't have her keys, and Trevor doesn't have his keys. So they all decide to split up. They split in half to go and get their keys and whatnot. So let's talk about this, Maddie, because I have a theory. And my theory, and I'm kind of sad about it, I think Rita's dead.
Ooh. Ooh.
Did I just blow your mind?
A little bit. A little bit.
I don't want it to be true because I like the character, but we didn't see what happened. I'm trying to remember now. I didn't rewatch the episode. I usually like to watch these episodes twice, so maybe you might remember this, Maddie. Did we see that it was Mr. Jingles that attacked her? Or did we just hear the keys jingling? Okay, so we saw...
No, and he came in with a knife.
Okay, just making sure. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Okay.
And why would he also, like, just stab her and let her go away? But also, like, Rita could be a badass, but...
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. Did we see both her ears?
Maybe not, because, like, her hair is kind of, like, down on that one side.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But this would really suck if, like, eventually, like, they're all together or whatever, but they're all dead, but they don't know it. Like, that's gonna suck.
I know, right?
Suck real bad.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. So, yeah, I feel like Rita could be dead. Yeah, which makes me sad a bit. So I hope not.
I don't like that there's a high possibility that everyone's gonna die. I don't like that. Because it's like, we just met all these characters. I feel like, I don't know. I just don't want I don't want them to die. I just feel like, you know, I'm rooting for them as like any horror movie. And I feel like this is the first time in American Horror Story where I'm actually like, no, don't kill them. Or like, you know, like cheering, hoping that the murderer doesn't kill people. I don't know if it's just because it seems more of like a slasher film. Instead of, you know, American Horror Story being like, oh, that person's dead now, or, you know, something like that. It just what we've seen before. But I just feel like I'm not wanting anyone to die in this season. And I don't know if that's just because it's a slasher film, but yeah, I don't want anybody to die. Now that you make me sad.
I know.
I need to be dead.
I'm really liking the characters too, so I feel you on that. Like, I don't know if I really want any of the characters to die either. Clearly they're gonna have to. It is slasher, you know, season, but I am really enjoying the character. So the idea of Rita being dead and being a ghost, it does make me sad, even though we just met Rita in the previous episode. So I feel like that is the deal, though. Like, if they're gonna give us a surprise death or another reveal, I think it's gonna be that Rita died and they're going to find her body or something like that.
Well, it probably makes sense as to why they introduced Jonas being a ghost so early, too, like, as well, for us to kind of focus on him but not realize that anybody else could be a ghost as well. So, that makes sense. It sucks, but it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so we aren't sure, but we think maybe Rita might be dead. So they split up, and it's Xavier, Trevor, and Montana go to get the keys to his motorcycle. They end up getting it, and that's when Xavier has his meltdown, And then the rest of them, Ray, Brooke, Rita, and Chet, go to get her keys. And initially, they're all kind of freaking out. Like nobody wants to go in first, and they're like, "Chet, you should go in. You're an Olympic athlete." And they're like, "No." And so Brooke ends up going in, and they look around. They end up getting the keys, but both of them, both groups in their cabins, they end up hearing someone. They hear keys jingling and whatnot, and then they have people trying to break in. So clearly, someone is trying to break in on on the Rita side of things, and someone is trying to break in on the Trevor side of things, which is interesting because we do have at least two killers on the loose with Mr. Jingles and Richard Ramirez, and I'm going to assume one of them will be a fake out, though. Like, do you feel like one of them is going to be a fake out?
What do you mean?
Meaning,
Oh, like the doors?
Yeah, someone's banging on the doors, but it's going to be
like
Margaret
it
or
might
something.
be Margaret, yeah.
Or the chef.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. But like, does she stay there overnight, the chef?
I would assume everyone's staying there overnight. If Rita's there.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So we're left with a really great cliffhanger, I would say. It got me hella annoyed, though, because I was like, fuck, I have to wait an entire week to see what happens next. But it was a really good cliffhanger. I liked it. It was very suspenseful. I am wondering who's on the other side of the door. If it is both of our killers, like who's after who. Would I guess Ramirez be on the side with where Brooke is? Is it Jingles, attacking the other group? I did like that they explained away sort of why they couldn't escape at that moment, at least, the fact that the car crashed and then I guess it wouldn't start up again. And then not only did the car crash, but the car crashed into Margaret's car, which might mean that maybe Margaret's car will be out of commission as well. Possibly.
Yeah, I have a feeling that no cars are going to work, especially since they couldn't find the keys from Rita's car.
Oh, they couldn't find the keys for Rita's. I wasn't sure if...
Yeah, I don't think they found them. So that's probably why Mr. Jingles went in there to make sure that maybe no one could get away. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they're stuck. They should just canoe.
I know, right? That's funny. It was a great way to end the episode, though. It was very suspenseful. I liked it. It reminded me a bit, once again, of Roanoke, because Roanoke had those cliffhangers at the end of the episode. So, yeah, it left me wanting more. And unfortunately, we have to wait a little bit. So, any other thoughts on the episode, Maddie, before we move into MVP? Was there anything else that stood out to you? Any small moments?
Like I said, I just thought it was a little fast. I didn't expect things to go as fast as they're going. Things that stood out to me, not much. That shower scene could have been a little bit longer, maybe.
That's funny. It's funny that they said at the start of the episode that there would be nudity, and I was like, I didn't see any nudity.
I know, I was very upset.
Yeah, they didn't take advantage of the FX nudity standards. All right, Maddie. So now it is time for the MVP, the most valuable player. State which character impressed you throughout the episode and why. Once a character has been chosen, they cannot be selected again, so choose wisely. Maddie, who's your MVP and why?
This is really hard. It's kind of hard because like everyone was being such a scaredy cat this episode. Like no one was really like brave and stuff like that. I'm gonna go with Margaret.
You're horrible.
Really? Was that you? Oh, I'm so sorry.
You didn't even have one, and you had to pick the one that I had.
Just go with like Richard Ramirez or something.
Oh, okay. Go.
Okay. yeah, she was just really awesome this episode. I really digged her character, and I want to know more of what happened, why she's doing this now. Clearly, there's something going on. And I like the way that she can just easily manipulate a freaking serial killer. Like, that's insane. To be able to manipulate Richard Ramirez that quickly, is incredible. So, kudos to her. And I would die if, like, the next episode, like, she's behind one of those doors and is like, okay, yeah, I know you guys are scared, but everyone back to bed and like, because the kids are coming tomorrow. Like, I would kill if she said that. Um, but yeah, I think she's my MVP for being a strong woman. Definitely not on the good side that we want her to be on, but yeah, Margaret.
Oddly enough, I am actually going to pick Richard Ramirez, and the reason is
Hell yeah.
because of not only his scene with Margaret, but his scenes throughout the entire episode. It's really fascinating how they're taking a real life person, a serial killer, and they're giving him, the tragic backstory, and they're fleshing his character out a lot in this season so far. We've gotten a lot of information on the Night Stalker within these past two episodes, and the actor's doing a really good job with it. Like, I'm completely buying it. I loved his chemistry with Margaret. I also love his chemistry with Brooke. There's something there, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if I want to call that sexual chemistry as well, but there's certainly something about him that's sort of fascinated by her, because he traveled all this, length, not length, but this distance to find her. So I think there's something about Brooke that he's fascinated by. Maybe that she bested him
Yeah, I
or
feel like it's the
something.
like the one that got away because Richard Ramirez was very much like that. Like his actual, like the person. But yeah, I definitely agree that I think he has like some sort of vendetta towards her.
Yeah, and maybe even a little bit of mutual respect as well. Like both, I think could be mixed in there a little bit. Yeah, I'm finding the actor really captivating. I'm enjoying his performance as Richard Ramirez. I still don't know what the hell they're gonna do with this character in this season, but it's fascinating. We've seen real life people on American Horror Story in the past, but usually they're kind of relegated to like flashbacks to show us like the people that inspire the characters in the present day. I feel like, and I'm trying to remember. Well, we had James March in Hotel, so he's a real life person that was in the present as well. So maybe this isn't the first time, but I feel like it's been a while since we've had sort of like a more historical figure come
Well,
in.
this could be like the younger version of Richard Ramirez. Like, you know what I mean? Because like in Hotel, he wore his glasses, like he looked a little older. Like it could be the way that like that's how they're playing this. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
I agree with you on that. But it's really interesting what they're doing with the character. I'm here for it. So now it is time to rate the episode. How would you rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10 keys? The point system is allowed, and if you found the episode exceptional, deserving of more than a 10, you may grant it the coveted golden key, and yes, you may jingle it. Maddie?
I'm going to give this episode, I'm going to say a 7.5. 7.5 keys. What? 7 keys and a broken key. How about that? um, just because, like I said, this episode was extremely fast for me, and we're losing like brand new characters right off the bat, so it's kind of jarring to me. But I'm giving it like over a 5 just because I'm so excited for what's going to happen next, and because we're getting so much new information that I think can really help us figure out what the end result of this season is going to be. But I think the first season was, or the first episode was way better than this episode. So yeah, a 7.5.
Okay, I feel like you manipulated me like Margaret manipulated Richard
Oh my
Ramirez, because I thought you
God.
were going to go higher. That's interesting. Well, I'm going to give it a 9.
Mm-mm-mm.
I enjoyed it. I feel like this is a very rewatchable episode. I loved the revelations. I feel like the revelations alone sort of kicked it up a lot for me. I love that they're bringing in ghosts. I liked getting the backstory of 3 of our characters with Brooke, Richard Ramirez, Xavier, and we got a lot of information that I think is really important from Jonas as well. I think a lot of what he said moving forward is going to be stuff that's going to be really important. So, yeah, and we got a cliffhanger. I feel like one of the characters might be dead. We saw a couple of other deaths, and they were all really gory and just spectacular in their own sort of way. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9. I liked it a lot. So on that note, join us next time for a brand new installment of Are You Afraid 1984. Once again, here's our announcer to remind you on how you can interact with us.
Follow Poppy Chula Radio on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Poppy Chula Radio. Do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns? Email us via contact@poppychularadio.com. Are you interested in joining the Poppy Chula Radio team as an on-air personality? Email talent@poppychularadio.com. Binge listen to your favorite Poppy Chula Radio programs by visiting poppychularadio.com/archives. You can also download tonight's broadcast and the rest of the series through Apple Podcasts and Google Play. Just search for Are You Afraid? 1984 and subscribe.
Thanks, announcer. My co-host, please wish the listeners a good night.
Good night, everyone. See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Download new episodes of Are You Afraid 1984 every Friday via Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and the Poppy Chulo Radio archives. Good night.